It really doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, whether you're like me and you're just a few months into it or you're probably years into it. You always have a certain amount of fidgetiness just before you go live. You're always checking your settings, checking everything else, making sure that everything is good. And then at some point, you finally get to the place you realize, hey, I'm okay, and this is going to work. I don't know that I'll ever get there, but at least it's a goal to shoot for. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. As always, welcome back to Front Porch Brunch, our weekly review of items in the news. And as always, we have quite a few things to talk about. We are on YouTube. We are on Rumble. We are on Twitter. So if you are out there, glad to have you. We're going to give everybody a minute or two to settle into the room. Again, this is Front Porch Brunch, weekly review of items in the news. Going to be talking about some stuff, giving some thoughts, giving some analysis, hearing what everybody's got to say. We are on Twitter. We are on Rumble. We are on YouTube. We are everywhere that there is to be and places yet to go. So, hoping to expand this thing out to things like locals and other platforms as time goes by. So, we'll see what happens. So anyway, my name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. Glad to have you here this morning. If you are out there, just before you stop into the room, do me a favor, if you would, and send out a tweet, send out a Gitter, send out a Truth Social, whatever platform you're on, and tell people, hey, here's the link. Get in the room. This guy's pretty good. He knows politics. Well, as much as one does know politics anyway. But yeah, we're glad to see it. It's Saturday morning. It is the 28th October. Can you believe it is almost November? My God. Just incredible the way this year is flying by. Just amazing. So, how is everybody this morning? I hope everyone's doing real well as you get ready to pop into the room. I am fine. I am glad it is the weekend. I don't know about you. My regular occupational life has been a little bit busy this week. So now it's like, okay, we're getting near the end of the month. Things are slowing down a little bit, yada, yada, yada. So, and it's been a long week for me following different stories and participating in different things. I want to take a moment before we really start getting into stories. Good morning, my dear. It is so good to see you. Mwah. And I saw what you did on Twitter last night, and we're going to get into that. Don't worry, because at the end of the show, I'm going to drop that announcement on everyone. So, yes, thank you very much for what you did last night. And yes, awesome of you to do so. So glad to see you this morning. We'll see who all is going to stop by. We got some Rumblers over there. It's always good to see you folks on Rumble. Feel free to drop a comment and chat. You can lurk if you want to. I love you. But, do not be afraid to participate in the chat. We'd love to hear from you, which, by the way, everybody, yeah, that's what I said. That, sometimes all it takes, and I'm not saying this to humble brag, it's the truth. Sometimes all you got to do is ask. You would be surprised, and it's a get when we get to that. But I want to take a moment once again and thank Tracy Barkley from the Keto and Crime YouTube channel for stopping by for a session of chatting on the porch. Tracy is a sweetheart. If you are not following her work, please do so because she's awesome. There's a lot of reasons why I think she and I get along instinctively. Part of it's being Southern. Part of it is being background. Part of it is a lot of different things. Tracy Barkley from Keto and Crime YouTube channel. Check her work out. She is amazing and is just funny as unbelievably funny. So, for the past couple or 3 years, she hasn't been on the road because of COVID. And I really hope that changes because the world could use some laughs right now. And Tracy is a very funny lady who could provide them. So, and it's strange how it all works out. I've got all these, well, I shouldn't say in my life, but I have come across some really interesting female comedians, and the person who has introduced them all to me, I want to reach out to and get her on the channel. I've sort of been holding off because I'm trying to refine what I do as far as how I do it because, I have so much respect for the lady that I don't just want to bring her on here and me just, pardon my language, half-ass it, because I respect her that much, and she's just a wonderful human being, much like Tracy. So I've got to get her on here. Maybe maybe December would be the perfect month to do it. That'd be an awesome Christmas gift to me anyway. I don't know about her. She might be like, oh, really? You're going to ruin my Christmas by making me come on your live stream? We'll see. But anyway, we are on Twitter. We are on. Yeah, it was a great interview with Tracy. I absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. Tracy is a load of fun, and anytime you can find her on her channel doing a live stream or on somebody else's channel doing a live stream, follow her because she is just funny as all get out. So yeah, we're letting people filter into the room, and it's going to be an interesting morning. There's a lot of stuff going on in the news. So like I said, we're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on Twitter, and for everybody who's out there right now, and I know you will if you feel comfortable doing it. If you don't, I understand, that's fine. But do me a favor, shoot out a tweet, shoot out a Getter, shoot out a Truth Social, whatever platform you're on, and drop the link and tell people to get in here because I'd like to see this be the biggest audience we have ever had. And Randy stops in moaning, getting started rolling smokes and getting my coupons in order for the grocery store. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, true words were never spoken like right here, folks. Right here. Let me tell you now, he speaks much truth. But Randy, we're glad to have you here this morning, brother. And yeah, we're going to have our normal cast of characters stop by, so we're glad to have you. So, oh my gosh, it's about 10:30. Oh, quick update. If you are a college football fan, and this is something of a tradition that we do here in the fall on Front Porch Brunch, who are you guys playing? Who is your team? Who's your team? Who are you playing? And do you think you're going to win? So if you want to drop that in chat, we'd love to hear it. So if you follow college football, who's your team? Who are you guys playing today? And do you think you're going to win? In my case, I'll start it off. My team is Marshall University. We are playing Coastal Carolina, and we're doing it at Coastal Carolina this weekend, which is Myrtle Beach. And I actually expect a pretty good contingent of Marshall fans to come out for that game because if you know anything about the state of West Virginia and Myrtle Beach, there's some kind of like weird psychological relationship that we have with each other. Well, I mean, it's not necessarily psychological. I'll tell you what it is. Years ago, it would be nothing for the coal mines in West Virginia to shut down during the summer for like a solid month. Okay. Safety inspections. All right. And, but I don't know. I do not know if that's where Robin McCutcheon teaches there or not. But it's nothing for the coal mines to shut down during the summer for safety inspections for like a solid month. So what the coal miners would do is they'd load up their kids in the station wagon and they'd drive down to Myrtle Beach. And this became a thing. It is generational, the amount of people from West Virginia that drive down to Myrtle Beach during the season and just hang out. It's almost like the Swallows coming back to Capistrano. So, the fact that Marshall University, which is a team from the state of West Virginia, is going to be playing at or near Myrtle Beach, I expect there to be a pretty healthy contingent of Marshall fans there for this game. So, just saying. But anyway, if you've got a college football team, let's hear who you're rooting for and who you're playing and all that good stuff. So, all right. I think I've gotten all the perfunctories out of the way. Like I said, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on Rumble. We're glad to have you. This is Front Porch Brunch. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your Front Porch Conservative. Glad to have you here on a Saturday morning. So let's go ahead and get into some stuff that I've got prepared. And as I'm looking at this row of tabs across my computer screen, it's like, woo-wee. A lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of things to talk about. But I suppose, excuse me as I take a quick sip of water. I suppose we should get into the biggest story of the week, and that is the election of the new Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, one Mr. Mike Johnson, Republican from the 4th District of Louisiana. And we'll start off with NBC's headline. There's nothing necessarily I want to read out of their article. but I just want to set this up. And let me tell you something. I thought the election of Donald Trump back in 2016 was a seismic shift for Washington, D.C. I'm coming to the conclusion that Mike Johnson's election to the speakership could be, and I think is to some extent right now, just as much of a seismic shift as was Donald Trump being elected to the presidency in 2016. Now, these two men are just vastly different, okay? Trump is a showman. Trump is flamboyant. Trump is any number of different adjectives you can use to describe the guy. Mike Johnson is about as low-key, humble, nose to the grindstone kind of an operator as you get. And it's kind of like if I had to like him into an airplane, he's like a stealth fighter. He flies under the radar. You know he's there. You don't necessarily see him, but you know he's doing his thing. And I don't use the word stealth in any kind of like negative connotation. It's just that's how he operates. He's just very quiet, unassuming, does his sort of thing, which I will argue, and not just in a political context, by the way, that if we had more men in America that were kind of like Mike Johnson, as far as like they quietly go about their business, they do their thing, and they do what men are supposed to do, the world would be a much better place. Oh, that's going to get clipped by somebody, and I'll get myself in trouble for that one, but you get my point. But how Mike Johnson got to the speakership has got to be one of the most fascinating things that I think I've ever watched politically. And I've seen all kinds of stuff. Excuse me a second. I got to take care of something over here on the other laptop real fast. This thing tends to do this to me. Well, come on. There you go. Okay. I say it's fascinating because we've had 3 weeks of just unending drama. Okay. Never see anything quite like it. Oh. Buenos dias. I'm just listening in as I don't have anything. Gypsy, hey Gypsy, I'm glad you're here. I need to ask you something. You popped off. Well, I shouldn't say popped off. I apologize. That's not the way I want to phrase that. You dropped a comment on one of my videos, and if you don't want me to discuss it, I won't. But do I have your permission to sort of give your feelings on this sort of thing? Because I can't say it's to disagree with you, but I want to use that as an example of kind of where some people are at with this whole Mike Johnson thing. And if you, like I said, if you don't want me to do it, that's fine. I won't. But I can work my way around it. But I'd love to just use this as an example. Then just let me know what you want to do. But yeah, there's a lot that went into him becoming speaker, and it's a really mixed bag of stuff. So I want to go over a little bit of it, not a lot. And then I want to get to the interview that he gave with Sean Hannity the other night, which I'm not going to lie, there's some stuff there that's starting to worry me already. But I also have to balance that worry. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Appreciate it. Uh, yeah, there's some worry that I have after that Hannity interview, and there's some things I'm trying to balance it with right now. So I think I'm kind of I think I'm kind of like up in Connecticut here. I'm kind of waiting on this guy. So I've got some comments with that, but let's get back to the how he got to the speaker part. I want to go over some of the clips that came out on Steve Bannon's War Room that I had put into a video the other night. And I want to start with the maneuvering that McCarthy and his acolytes were doing, particularly the bow tie toad. So let me pull this up and just show you what these guys were up to, and it's really nothing short of amazing. So let's start with this clip from Matt Gaetz' appearance. And I want you guys to listen to what he says, because to me, this is really fascinating.
To the unifying moment. So because of McCarthy's objection, we had to have this 3-hour delay. And, candidates announce again, have another forum. And guess what happens during that delay, Steve? Patrick McHenry runs to the House floor, opens it up out of recess, and then adjourns till noon today. Now, why did he do that? Because they were setting up a play to block Mike Johnson with write-in votes in the intra-conference process for Kevin McCarthy.
Okay. Going to stop it right there. And like I said in my video the other day, I couldn't figure out why they'd take a vote, then McHenry would immediately recess them. They'd come back 12 to 18 hours later, they'd take another vote. McHenry immediately recesses them. I remember how this went back in January, and it was vote after vote after vote. Like maybe 3 or 4 votes in a day, and then they'd recess. But of course, that was on behalf of Kevin McCarthy. And it's very strange and very weird. Now, I also said in my video that, normally I don't take what one person says at face value. I like things being confirmed out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. Okay. So hang on one second. Rumble is scaring me to death here. Rumble is rolling. Hang on. Got to check something real fast. Sorry about this, folks. Because like I say, Rumble is just terrifying me right now. Okay, Rumble's still good. It scared me to death there for a second. It did something very weird to me. Okay, we're back. All right, good. Okay. Frightening. Anyway. But then along comes Nancy Mace. And I want to play her clip, and it runs just a little over a minute. I'll stop it if I feel I need to. But you want some confirmation of what Gaetz was saying about how all this went down? Take a listen to this, and I think this one is very, very telling as well. So, let me get this pulled up, and here we go.
At one point, Kevin McCarthy had multiple outbursts screaming at the conference.
Oh, okay.
How intense these fights are behind the scenes. When you say McCarthy and his followers are trying to knife people in the back, just walk us through for a second, because I want to have the audience appreciate how hard this is, the political, profiles and courage of you and others have stepped up here. But just walk us through how it was all unmasked the other night.
Well, it's all been orchestrated. This thing didn't need to last through 3 weeks. So the first thing that McCarthy and his allies did was prolong it and delay it and recess us and adjourn us every time they possibly could to drag this thing out and make it as painful as possible for the 8 of us who held the line and kicked McCarthy out of the speakership. That's number.
Okay, she's just confirming what Matt Gaetz had said in that other clip, so we'll move forward.
Number one. Number two, there was a concerted and orchestrated effort at the hand of McCarthy that every time someone ascended, they got knifed in the back, including America's favorite Republican congressman in Jim Jordan.
Okay, I don't know if he's America's favorite congressman, but he's a favorite to a lot of conservatives. So I'll give her a little bit of leeway on that one.
I mean, our conference couldn't even elect the best and favorite congressman in this country, Jim Jordan, because of what McCarthy and his allies were doing behind the scenes and orchestrating his failure. And he did it not once, not twice, but 3 times. And finally, we were able to unmask what he was doing earlier this week. And
okay, if you're wondering, if you didn't follow what we had gotten a chance to talk about in that video, it's this. A couple of things happened inside that caucus the other night that elected Mike Johnson to the nomination for speakership. And one of them was this. You had a lot of votes that were taken on the nomination of Steve Scalise, on Jim Jordan, and even Tom Emmer, where people were voting for other. They wouldn't necessarily vote for or say the name of who they were voting for, but they indicated they would vote for somebody else other than the presumptive person in nomination. Well, it was becoming kind of obvious what was doing, because then they go to the floor, and then you'd have all these votes for Scalise, or you'd have votes for McCarthy, and on this went, which gets to our next clip. And to show you what McCarthy's plan was, it really blows the mind. I mean, Niccolo Machiavelli would be proud of what Kevin McCarthy tried to do, because this was some brilliant political maneuvering. It was an understanding of the people involved in the caucus. It was understanding of a lot of different factors. So I'm going to play this clip from Gates and take a listen to this.
The play was for McCarthy to return as speaker, and then Jim Jordan to be the deputy speaker in some sort of like Dwight Schrute assistant to the regional manager posture. And that would have been debasing to Jordan, someone I like a great deal, and it would have been empowering to McCarthy. So Garrett Graves and all these people are working to try to effectuate this return of McCarthy. And they're telling us they're going to be 100 votes for McCarthy on the write-in. You know how many there were? 33.
Okay, I want to stop there for a second. And lest you think that, Gates is just absolutely talking out of his head, let me show you something real quick from NBC News. McCarthy floats partnership with Jim Jordan as assistant speaker. Amid the impasse, McCarthy is floating a plan that would reinstall him as speaker and make Jordan a conservative Trump ally, the assistant speaker, according to 3 sources familiar with McCarthy's pitch. What McCarthy was doing was diabolical but brilliant. Basically, he and his minions were putting the political knife in the back of anybody else, Scalise, Jordan, Tom Emmer. And what they were trying to do was create a situation where nobody could be elected, and the pressure would be brought that he could bring himself back. And it would have worked had Mike Johnson not asked for a roll call vote inside the caucus, which that was pretty good. Pretty good. Oh, there she is, my lovely. Oh, you're in a parade? Oh, cool. Well, now don't get yourself hurt, and get all the candy you possibly can thrown at you. You got to know how to work these things. So glad to have you here, Leanne. So that's McCarthy's play. Make sure nobody else can get the nomination. Make sure nobody else can be elected speaker, and then slowly slip the idea in that, hey, maybe you ought to bring me back because you can't seem to get anybody else. Well, that was all very well and good, except it didn't work. So in the end, what was all this about? Well, I'll give you Gates' take on this. So this is the last clip from Matt Gaetz, and then we'll get into some discussions about who Mike Johnson is. And this is going to be a wide open debate. So take a listen to this in 3, 2, and 1.
I want to go back to the specter. We've called the specter McCarthy has loomed over this entire thing. And the mainstream media refused. They kept saying we were the causes of chaos. This is because the lobbyists, the corporatists, the oligarchs on Wall Street, big tech, have control of him and this apparatus. They've had it now for over a decade, right? And they don't want to give it up. That was, at the end of the day, that's what the fight was about.
Right. When they are in control, the American people get chaos. We get chaos with no budgets, with rising debts, with an administrative bureaucratic state that has seemingly no check, with all of these performative resolutions and investigations that don't result in meaningful change for our people. That's chaos. I have tried to bring order out of that chaos. And the reason it took me a little longer than expected, the reason it took 3 weeks instead of 3 days, is because Kevin McCarthy leveraged the last vestiges of his power to try to block any other human of any other ideology from being able to assume the speakership.
And there you have it. But in the end, McCarthy failed. Yeah. And hang on up in Connecticut. We're going to get to that. So it goes to the House floor, and it's a unanimous vote. And Mike Johnson of Louisiana becomes Speaker. And there may be some things happening already because of all this, which I think are kind of interesting. We're not even into 2024 yet, and two Democrats from the House have already announced their retirement. Jeff Jackson from North Carolina and John Sarbanes from Maryland. Now, I don't know that the Republicans are going to pick up John Sarbanes' seat, but that seat in North Carolina intrigues me because the Republicans are definitely ascendant in North Carolina. Big time. So you never know. Might happen. But I thought that was interesting. Now, that sort of gets to the next question. Who is Mike Johnson? Because like I said, this guy has, until now, has been flying under the radar. I mean, his Republican colleagues know him. Democrats know him. I mean, he gets that occasional 15 minutes of fame when he's questioning somebody in Judiciary Committee or whatever. But aside from that, you don't know anything about the guy. And what you find out is encouraging in a lot of respects. But there's been some stuff that's been happening ever since he became Speaker, and people in chat are already referring to it. Dr. OK over on Rumble says, I like Mike Johnson. Jordan would have been my pick, though. Okay, I can respect that. I can totally respect that, Dr. OK. And thank you for dropping a comment in chat. You know, my Rumblers over there aren't necessarily the most chatty of people. They like to lurk. And you are definitely not a lurker, sir. So thank you for dropping your comment. I do appreciate that. But there's some stuff that's been commented on by Mike Johnson himself ever since he became the Speaker that's giving me some pause. We'll get to it. Don't worry, I'm not trying to short shrift anybody here because this needs to get aired out. But who is Mike Johnson? Well, let's start with what some people think about him. Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. We read the following. Mike Johnson was on the Republican Study Committee, but in 2020, he was attempting to change it to change the party. He wanted a more blue-collar conservatism, more populist GOP. He's not an unrealistic wonk like Paul Ryan is or was, or even an ideologically hollow Kevin McCarthy. Okay. All right. I'm good with that. That sounds pretty good so far. Then I go to this post by a social media influencer named the 1776, and we read the following. I've been asked privately about my thoughts on Mike Johnson as Speaker. I'm 100% in for Mike Johnson after doing some digging. The only thing I knew about Johnson before he became Speaker was that he was a congressman from Louisiana. I was skeptical when I saw he got 220 votes on the first vote. And being America first and seeing his first action as Speaker was to support Israel. Yeah, and Gypsy, here comes your comment, and I'll get to it in a minute. It's not realistic to have a perfect candidate, but we should support those fighting for the conservative cause. Another concern I had was that Johnson had a 74% Liberty score until I learned the reasons he got that score. In 2022, he voted against the Ukraine supplemental appropriation. He voted in favor of the National Defense Act, which would have stricken $300 million in assistance for Ukraine. Voted in favor of Amendment 22, the National Defense Authorization Act, would have prohibited all security assistance to Ukraine. In favor of Amendment 25 to H.R. 2670, would have removed the extension of Lend-Lease authority to Ukraine, etc. More on Johnson. He was elected in 2016, 20 years of practice in constitutional law, part of Trump's legal team in both impeachment trials, Christian, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, for securing the border, very policy-driven, voted against certifying Biden's election, voted no on the CR to keep the government open, voted no on the bill to federally recognize same-sex marriage, voted no to certify the 2020 election, voted no to climate change, believes J6 was a peaceful protest, ally the House Freedom Caucus against vax mandates, called to arrest Nancy Pelosi after she tore up the State of the Union, which I think is funny as all get out. Not that she tore it up, but he called to have her arrested. And endorsed by Trump. Okay. All right, all that sounds pretty good. And here's one that just came up that I thought was really fun. White House on Friday called offensive new House Speaker Mike Johnson's remark that the problem with gun violence and mass shootings in particular is with the human heart and not with the guns themselves. Oh, now if that comment pissed off Joe Biden, okay, down with you, brother. Now, that said, that gets us to the Hannity interview. Well, let me back up first before I do that. Gypsy, I had posted my video the other day about how Mike Johnson got to the speakership. And the first thing he did was put a resolution on the floor in support of Israel. And I don't have the comment pulled up in front of me, but Gypsy had made the observation in a post that of all the things we've got going on right now, and this is the first thing you do, our southern border is wide open, and the first thing you do is drop a resolution supporting Israel. Okay, maybe Israel needs support. Don't dispute that. And I said to Gypsy, I was like, I don't disagree with you. I mean, if you really wanted to send a message, I mean, you could write up some type of resolution saying the southern border is wide open and we want something done about it. That I would have understood. Okay. But she wasn't real happy about it. I can't say I was real happy about it. And then that leads to this. This is a post from the social media influencer known as Cat Turd, who I love, by the way. If you're not following him on social media, you need to be doing so. We read the following. The first order of business for Mike Johnson was to support giving tens of billions of dollars to other countries' wars and to run to Hannity. Sorry, I'm not impressed and I won't be fooled again. Now, lest you think old Cat Turd is being exceedingly harsh, I've got to play some of this interview that Mike Johnson did on Sean Hannity. Now, before we even get to that, I got a few things to say. I'm kind of like everybody else. Really? Sean Hannity? You become Speaker of the House and the first interview you give is with Sean Hannity? Dude, it's supposed to be a brand new day. You went on Sean Hannity? Oh, God. Why not Tucker Carlson? Why not Tim Pool? Why not somebody else other than Sean Hannity? Now, I get it. Part of your demographic that you're trying to talk to watches Fox News. Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, that demographic is not as big as you think it is. Not anymore. Not since 2020. Not since they got rid of Tucker Carlson. But okay. You made the choice to go on with Sean Hannity. But you did it. And it's some of the comments he made that really just... I can't... Well, yes, I can. And I'm doing my dead level best here to give him grace on this. Okay? So let's start with the first one. And after the first 15 minutes or so, Sean Hannity gets into some questions as it relates to some pretty big items that are going on in the world right now. So that sets up what I call watered down domino theory. So that's what I call this clip. Folks, take a listen to this, and then we'll get into what you think about it.
Another $61 billion. How will you deal with the issues that he wants to tie all of these issues together, which now gets into the budgetary process? Will you go issue by issue?
I told the staff at the White House today that our consensus among House Republicans is that we need to bifurcate those issues. I agree with your assessment in Ukraine, and that's why the American people are demanding some real accountability for the use of those dollars. Now, we can't allow Vladimir Putin to prevail in Ukraine because I don't believe it would stop there, and it would probably encourage and empower China to perhaps make a move on Taiwan.
Okay. Now that everyone's blood pressure is up, let's get into this. Yeah, Gypsy. Yeah, you're not wrong. You are not wrong at all. I don't disagree with you. We need to bifurcate these issues. Okay, I don't disagree with that. As far as I'm concerned, if you're going to vote appropriations, regardless of dollar amount, it ought to be its own separate standalone bill. In other words, this amount of money for Ukraine, if you're even going to do it. This amount of money for Israel, if you're even going to do it. This amount of money for the southern border, if you're going to do it. I got no problem with that. I think that's absolutely what ought to be done. I have no problem whatsoever with the idea of accountability. I mean, look, it's our tax dollars. It's our money that they're spending up there. Daggone it, I want to know where it's being spent, and I want to know what it's being spent on. That's not unreasonable. That's fantastic. And frankly, would probably scare the White House to death because they don't want people to know how that money's being spent. They just want the Congress to write some kind of a blank check, give it to the kids, and let them go out and party on it, which is what the White House really is doing when it comes to Ukraine. My problem is with this is Johnson's justification for why we've got to keep on giving money and supporting Ukraine and even being involved in this thing. We can't abandon, we can't abandon the people of Ukraine. This would, cause problems elsewhere in the world. China would be emboldened to go into Taiwan. Dude, I got bad news for you. They were already emboldened to go into Taiwan long before we ever got the idea of getting involved in Ukraine. They were testing Biden in 2021 before all this nonsense with Ukraine got started. I mean, some of my comments aren't necessarily original to me on this one, but I mean, I'm not going to, he's exercising some form of watered down domino theory. If we don't do this, then this, and this is crap. This is crap thinking. But I also come back to something else, and I am really trying. I said, I'm really trying here. I'm doing my dead level best to not just, crap on this guy 48 hours into the job. Okay. I think, at least I'm willing to give him this. I think there are things about him that in the long run could be better for the House as an institution and better for the country in general if he's willing to stand and lead on it. Okay. I kind of agree with Up in Connecticut about this. I'm still waiting on the guy. I haven't made up my mind. I agree with you. That's kind of where I am. But man, I mean, really? We're gonna keep on being involved in Ukraine because we're scared to death? That's gonna cause a problem somewhere else. That to me is something that's not, either he's not paying attention or he's playing a game. And the game is this. I have to say certain things to placate some people in the House, which goes against my better judgment. And I'm going to try and work my way around it when we actually pass legislation. I don't know yet. But I know that comment just bugs the crap out of me. It really does. So then that gets to the question of how is this going to be different than what is currently going on right now? Okay. So then we're going to play this clip. And I want to hear what you guys think about this. So drop your comments in chat because this gets really, really interesting. Listen to this.
Concerns. We're not going to abandon them, but we have a responsibility, a stewardship responsibility over the precious treasure of the American people. And we have to make sure that the White House is providing the people with some accountability for the dollars. And we want to know what the objective there is. What is the end game in Ukraine? The White House has not provided that. I was at the White House for a couple of hours today, and I told the staff there that this is where we are. This is where the House Republicans are. So we're going to look at Israel separately.
That kind of money.
Okay. I don't necessarily have a problem with the idea of accountability. But to me, this is just too nicey goody two shoes. The staff? You told the staff? Why didn't you say this to Biden? Well, yeah, you beat me to it. You beat me to it. I mean, you met with the man for 2 hours. Apparently, from what I understand from earlier in that interview with Hannity, you were alone in the room with him for a while. I mean, I'm not saying you walk in the room, pin the guy up against the wall, and slap the crap out of him. But you couldn't have, put it directly to the president? Hey, you have spent, what was the number I heard? $76.8 billion so far. That's how much money, by Sean Hannity's estimate, we've spent so far in Ukraine. $76.8 billion. And now the President of the United States wants another $60 billion for Ukraine. Yeah, I'd like for that money to be somebody to be held to account for the spending of that money. So why didn't you say it to the president? What, you don't think he doesn't want you? What, you're trying to be nice? I don't know. I don't know what that was, but he's. And again, I am desperately trying not to crap on this guy. He's 48 hours into the job. I think there's things about him that have the potential to be really, really good. But man, he's starting off on this Ukraine crap, and it's just, as far as I'm, not another dime. No more. Nothing. Get us out of it. Get us out of it. Pull the sanctions off. It's crazy. Yeah, really. Well, now that may be the reason that the speaker did not speak to the president about this. Could very well be. That's a good point. That's a really good point. And I'm not going to lie, small time, that's an issue I've got to do some research on. I'm not saying you're wrong or anything like that, but man, I have heard this said about how FTX was moving money around to the benefit of the DNC. I've got to look into that. I really do. But yeah, he's just making me personally. He's making me nuts with these comments about Ukraine. It's bad enough you went to Sean Hannity for the first interview when you could have gone to Tucker Carlson or Tim Pool or anybody else. But then you're just sitting there just mouthing. It's like, oh, God, you sound no better than McCarthy. It's like, blessed Lord. Now, maybe, like I said, maybe when the pen comes to paper, this thing's going to be written up in such a way that I'll be much happier with the end result. But these comments are they're giving me heartburn. Or to borrow a line from one of my favorite movies, Remember the Titans? It's kind of like when Denzel Washington looked at the other guy and said, "Coach, you're overcooking my grits." Mike Johnson's overcooking my grits on this thing. He really is. But then there's one more clip, and this is the one that just absolutely just make me facepalm and go, oh, God, really? It's this one that just, sent me up. So aside from that, I'm going to play it, and I want your reaction to it. Doesn't matter if you're on Rumble, doesn't matter if you're on YouTube, doesn't matter where it is. I want to hear your reaction to this because let's just do it. In 3, 2, 1.
We're going to look at Israel
With that
separately.
kind of money, is it America having a proxy war with Putin and Russia?
It's a great concern. We've got a group of our colleagues here in the House, led by Mike Garcia out of California, a brilliant legislator and a Top Gun pilot. And some of our veterans have gotten together. Dan Crenshaw is involved in this and others. They came up with a document that presents 12 critical questions for the White House to answer as a condition of our supplying the additional support. These are not hard questions, Sean. These are things the White House should be forthcoming about. I delivered that myself.
Oh, you did deliver it to the
I
president?
delivered it myself today, and to the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan.
Did he read it?
He says he's studied.
He's going to study it
Yes.
tonight during the show.
Yes. So we want to be cooperative. We need to work together on this, but we owe it to the people to know what the plan is, where the money is going to be spent, and we need some auditing for the dollars that we've already sent over there. These are not tough questions, right?
Okay. Let's hear it. All of you. If you're watching on Rumble, on YouTube, I want to hear your reaction to that comment before I start giving mine. I've got any number of things that just pop through my head when I hear that. Again, I have no problem with the idea of the accountability. That's not what makes me nuts about that comment. I have no problem at all with the idea of the money being audited. Okay, that's another measure of accountability. That's fine. I'm cool with that. But I'm just curious if y'all caught what I did in this. There's 2 or 3 things out of this that just kind of really set me up. Yeah, now there's one good point. What are these 12 questions? What is it that you want to know that the White House apparently, after what now, 2.5 years? Or a year and a half, let me rephrase that, because Russia invaded Ukraine in 2020, January 2022, if I remember correctly. So about a year and a half into this thing, what is it that you don't know that apparently you think you need to have answered that you haven't had answered yet? Here's another good point. You gave this document to Jake Sullivan? Really? Of all people? No offense, Mr. Speaker, but this guy's probably going to use it for, lining on the bottom of a bird cage in his office. That's how much it's going to get crapped on. The thing that got me, and I'll go ahead and tell you where I'm at with this. Okay, I don't necessarily have a problem with Mike Garcia, but Dan Crenshaw? You're involving Dan Crenshaw in this? Dan Crenshaw is one of the biggest war hawks in the House. He's Captain Neocon. This guy's ridiculous. And you're engaging him to help you in this effort to communicate with the White House what the intentions of the House GOP are? Now, some people are going to sit there and say, well, you're crapping on Crenshaw. He's a veteran. I don't dispute that. I got no problem with that. But, man, everybody knows where Dan Crenshaw's at. And it's just, I don't know. I mean, to me, he's being too nicey. He's being too, yeah. Gypsy, I'm like you. It's like, God bless it, really? Like I said, I'm doing my best not to just dump on this guy. Now, I also do that, and I need to pull, yeah. Yep. Can't disagree with you there. Can't disagree with you at all. I'm See, here's what I think a lot of people need to remember when it comes to Mike Johnson being Speaker of the House. And it's something I have to remind myself of. It is one thing to be a legislator with a really high rating from this group or that group, and he's considered very conservative, and he got a good scorecard and everything else, which I think Mike Johnson is. And I think Mike Johnson, from everything I've heard about him, I think he is everything that he is reputed to be: humble, quiet, hardworking, very smart, loves the Constitution, but he's also herding cats. And if you get right down to it, that's part of the job of the speaker. It's not the only thing, but you've got to get 218 people to agree on one or more points in a piece of legislation in order to get the thing over to the Senate. Not for it to become law, just to get it over to the Senate. And that is one incredibly hard job to do. Okay. Take a look at some comments we got here. Daniel, I don't disagree with you. Dude, I don't disagree with you at all on this point. I really don't. It just makes you nuts. Okay, and I'm glad I have your permission. I appreciate that. I need to laugh right now because, some of this stuff gets a little bit dark. It does. Yeah. Yeah. I cannot disagree with that at all. Love my country too. They're scaring me to death. But, see, that's the thing. I'm trying to, on balance, I think Johnson is a definite upgrade from Kevin McCarthy. I think it's going to take time. No, I don't think it is. Daniel, I really don't think it is. I don't think it's a you problem. In the same way, I don't think it's a me problem either. It's just there are certain expectations that we have either individually or corporately, and I say we being populists, conservatives, libertarians, of our leaders. And when they start making comments like this, we're like, ugh. But I also have to remember something. We're electing politicians. We are not electing perfect people. There's only one of those, and they crucified him. You get my point? There's going to be stuff that Mike Johnson is going to do that makes me 7 shades of crazy. This is one of them, okay? However, I'm also willing to give him benefit of the doubt for a certain amount of time, because I want to see if on the whole, he turns out to be much better than what we had. And I think the possibility is there. I really do. This guy's record, although he's only been in the House for 6 or 7 years. This is my kind of congressman. And like I said, he was not elected to the job of, let me be the most conservative congressman in the House of Representatives. He was elected to the job of Speaker. And one of them is, as up in Connecticut said in her post, it was a 1-word post, and it was brilliant. Horse trading. In his job, there's going to be some of that going on. I don't like it. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't like it when you start horse trading away your principles. If you're horse trading for the sake of getting a better deal and everybody kind of agrees in principle to what that should be, okay, fine. I get that. Fine. I understand that part. I just get worried. But you know what? I'm keeping my powder dry on this one, but I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, yeah. It's just, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I saw. Yeah, we'll talk about it in HodgePodge Stew because that's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. And he's getting a little bit of what he deserves. But there is a ray of sunshine. And I saw this the other day and I thought I need to bring this to everybody's attention. Because in spite of what I consider to be some very soft peddling, soft soaping, soft serve ice creaming of the Biden administration on this whole Ukraine thing from the new Speaker of the House, it may very well be that all this is for naught. Take a look at this. This comes from Politico. This was about 4 days ago, but I think it's definitely worth mentioning. Biden's $106 billion package is in trouble in the Senate. Not the House, the Senate. Now watch this. Article by Burgess Everett and Ursula Perrino. President Joe Biden's $106 billion national security request is in big trouble on Capitol Hill. Even before it hits the leaderless House, which is no longer the case, obviously. Senate GOP divisions are threatening to sink the proposal or dramatically reshape it. Republicans are split over whether to link Israel and Ukraine aid, with many also pushing for big border security changes and blanching at the price tag. Even some GOP supporters of the effort's four priorities, Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and the southern border, are uncharacteristically pessimistic after the party's first discussion about the legislation at Tuesday's lunch. Quote, "The package that the White House sent over really is dead," said Mike Rounds, Republican from South Dakota. "The appropriators in the Senate can begin by basically starting over." Whoa. Democrats hold the keys to the Senate, but they'll need 9 or more Republican votes to get anything through the chamber. Minority Leader Mitch McConnell stumped over the weekend for a generous aid package, but said his members have passion for strong border security, and we're going to make other changes as well. Now, okay, whoop-de-doo. Whoop-de-doo. Senate Appropriations Committee will hold a hearing on the request in a week. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer wants to move urgently, but the November 17th government deadline funding and a leaderless House create a time crunch for the Senate. They are in trouble, folks. Now, with regard to the Senate Republicans, if ever there was a time for J.D. Vance and Rand Paul and Mike Lee and a handful of others to just raise enough hell to either sink this thing or get it severely whittled down, now's the time. Here's your chance. Now, knowing McConnell, he could probably get the 9 or 10 votes he needs because there's just enough of them over there to just cozy up to the Democrats and give Chuck Schumer and the Biden White House whatever they want. But I think it is encouraging that as it stands right now, that you are seeing a big pushback on this. And I'll also give you something else to think about. I'm going to play a clip of an interview between Glenn Loury and John Mearsheimer. Glenn Loury is a writer. He is he's a professor at the Watson Institute of Brown University. He writes about race inequality in the U.S. And he had John Mearsheimer on. They were discussing Ukraine. I want you to hear this because this is stuff you're not hearing in the mainstream media. And let me tell you something. If you're not familiar with John Mearsheimer, you need to be following his work because this is one of the most realistic people on foreign policy you're ever going to come across. And if you mention his name in front of somebody like Mitch McConnell or any other neocon in Washington, they'll spit on the ground. They cannot stand Mearsheimer. And I think you're going to understand why when I bring you this. So listen to this exchange between Glenn Loury, one professor, and John Mearsheimer, another professor. This is really interesting.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. You're scaring the hell out of me, by the way.
Oops.
I was going to ask you because I read your Blitzkrieg essay, about what the consequences of this counteroffensive that the Ukrainians were mounting, and what the war of attrition betting odds are, given the underlying fundamentals about the differences in the arraignment of forces between the conflicting parties.
Yeah, I mean, the counteroffensive, which was launched on 4 June of this year, was a blitzkrieg. It was a clever strategy. It was designed to deliver a rather quick hammer blow to the Russian military and force them to the negotiating table, where we would, in theory, get a very good agreement, we meaning the West and the United States. The counteroffensive has clearly failed.
Are you hearing that from anybody in the mainstream media in America?
It's actually been a disaster. What that means is that we're now engaged in a war of attrition, which was the case before the counteroffensive was launched. It's important to understand that we launched the counteroffensive, or the Ukrainians launched the counteroffensive, to get out of the war of attrition, because I think the Ukrainians and the Americans understood that if it was a war of attrition, the Ukrainians could not win. But
I have a question. Why are we doing this? And I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I wanted to play that part of it to get everybody to understand. The Ukrainians are not going to win this war. The Russians have more men. They have more munitions. They have more everything else. The best way I can liken the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and I think I've said this before on this live stream, is like 2 kids on the playground. One of them is smaller, he's quicker, he can't hit you as hard, but he'll just flick you to death. He's an annoying little brat. Okay, now this analogy is not perfect, but follow me here. The other kid is bigger, bulkier, not nearly as fast, but he's strong as a bull. Now, the advantage goes to that little kid, where he's just flicking and jabbing and running away, flicking, jabbing, and run away. But if in this fight between 2 kids on the schoolyard, if that big old brute of a kid gets that little guy in a headlock and just sits on him, he'll just grind him down and wear him out. That little kid's going to flail all over the place. Arms, legs. He will just, like a fish out of water, is how bad he'll flail. But in the end, that big old kid has got him in a headlock. He's not going to let him go until he finally wears him down. That is Russia to Ukraine. Russia's bigger, bulkier, but they're stronger. Maybe not as fast, but they're stronger. Ukraine is smaller, quicker, whatever. What the Russians are doing right now is grinding the Ukrainians down into powder. The Russians know they can produce the munitions, the manpower, and everything else, and just wear Ukraine out. And Mearsheimer is absolutely right. That's what's going on here. They're just going to wear them out. And the question becomes, how long before the press in the West, because there are independent journalists out there, they're saying the same, they're confirming what Mearsheimer is telling you right now. Okay? They're absolutely confirming it. But the press in the West, oh, no, we got to keep supporting Ukraine. Why? That should have been the first question asked. But now, a year and a half into this thing, they're going nowhere. You know, I mean, I give Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, credit for this. What is the end game here? Are we just going to keep doing this until God only knows what's left of Ukraine when it's all said and done? Till they're leveled, like looking like Germany after World War II? Is this what we're doing here? Yeah, and on this point, I absolutely agree with you. Absolutely agree. I think you're right, Daniel. I really do. I do. So yeah, the Speaker of the House and Ukraine. Not exactly filling me with a lot of hope here, I'll tell you that much. Yeah, exactly. It's a regional conflict. This has nothing to do with us. I go back to one of my favorite, phrases when it comes to, and it applies to government. You spent so much time figuring out how to do it, you didn't stop long enough to ask if you should. Where's the vital national security interest in America getting involved in a proxy war with the Russians in Ukraine? Well, we've got to stop the Russians from advancing in Europe. Prove that they were. Prove that they are. Show me. Oh, now. Brother, you speak truth big time right here. Right here, folks. You want to know a lot of what this is about? Right here. Oh, come on, Front Porch. You're being cynical about this. Maybe, but it's not. I'm not wrong. Breaks the heart and makes me just want to just scream. But before I do all that, it is, oh my gosh. We're probably going to blow past the 12:30 mark today, folks, because I got some stuff lined up that definitely got to be talking about. You saucy thing, you. My goodness. Ah. Ugh. That's scary. That's scary indeed. I don't know. But before we switch topics, let's pause for a second. It is 11:40 on Saturday morning. My name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. We have Daniel Clancy's here up in Connecticut, Small Time Republic. Gypsy's here. We've got Dr. OK over there on Rumble. We got other people watching. Glad to have you here. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, please do so. Would love to have your efforts. Send out a tweet, send out a getter, send out a Truth Social. Send them the link. Tell them to get in here. Glad to have all of you. It's a joy to be here. So let's switch gears. Talk about some other things in the news. The shooting up in Maine. Now I hadn't commented on this for a lot of reasons. And one of them is, as much as I possibly can, I always try to apply the Bongino rule. And that is wait 48 to 72 hours for as much or all of the information to come out. Never comment on it when it first happens. Now, there's good and bad to that. The bad is that for a content creator like me, that sometimes puts you behind the 8 ball, because there are people that are out there talking about it first thing out of the chute. They've got the time, the ability, the setup. They've already got videos made, yada, yada, yada. Good morning, Hunter. Glad to have you here, sir. Or madam, but I'll assume sir. So that's the bad. The good is you can avoid making a lot of mistakes. And one of them is talking before you got all the facts. And I needed to sort of sort this thing out. Now, here's where we are as far as all this. Late Wednesday night, a gentleman fatally shot 18 people in Lewiston, Maine. So let me put up this headline for the New York Times. Yes, I am a sir. Okay, Hunter. I thought that was the case, but these days, yeah, you use the wrong pronoun, people get crazy. So here's a headline from the New York Times. The Maine shooting. Suspect in Lewiston shooting is found dead. Police have found the body of the man they had sought in the fatal shootings of 18 people. Governor Janet Mills said, so he has assumed room temperature, as the late Rush Limbaugh would have put it. But what do we know about this guy? And what questions should we be asking? And I think there are legitimate ones ought to be asked. I really do. So let's start with, some basics here. Who is Robert Card? This is the gentleman who committed the shootings, or at least is accused thereof. And this person of interest in the Maine Mass Shooting. This is from the New York Post. Robert Card, 40, was the suspect of a massive manhunt in connection with the horrific carnage in the city of Lewiston on Wednesday night, local police department announced. The shooting may have begun as a domestic dispute, with Card's sister saying she believed he was looking for his ex-girlfriend at the bowling alley, ABC reported. Card left behind a rambling suicide note for his son, which contained personal information such as bank account numbers along with rantings and ravings. More than 350 state and federal officials are conducting a desperate manhunt for the armed and dangerous Army reservist that extends all the way to the border with Canada. Canadian border officials have issued alerts, yada, yada, yada. A longtime friend of Card's told the Post that the Maine woods were the reservist stomping grounds, and that's the skilled outdoorsman is capable of hiding out for a long time if he doesn't want to be caught. He suffered from mental health issues, recently reported hearing voices, and threatened to shoot up military training base in Saco, Maine, sources said. So that's who he was. Now, I've got some other questions. Okay. I really do. I've got some things I'd like to know. But before I can find all that out, on cue, what happens when this sort of thing comes about? Gun control. Biden renews call for stricter gun laws. Calling the past few days a tragedy, Joe Biden late Friday issued a statement on the conclusion of the manhunt for the suspect believed responsible for Maine's deadliest mass shooting. Quote, this has been a tragic 2 days, not just for Lewiston, Maine, but for our entire country. He expressed gratitude to law enforcement for finding the suspect's body. They are the best of us, Biden said of the officers, deputies, and state police who have searched nonstop for the suspect Wednesday night. Biden used the occasion to remind Americans he's been calling for stricter gun laws he says would prevent mass shootings. Biden has been a proponent of renewing the federal assault weapons ban written by the late Dianne Feinstein, targeting high-power semi-automatic rifles, which expired in 2004. Americans should not have to live like this, Biden said. I will continue to do everything in my power to end gun violence. The Lewiston community and all Americans deserve nothing less. Well, there's just one little problem with with Biden's call for, banning semi-automatic weapons. Headline. Robert Card legally bought the rifle believed to be used in the Maine massacre days before his mental health treatment. Article by Catherine Dunleavy and Patrick Riley. Robert Card, who was found dead Friday, legally purchased a rifle that police believe he used in the Maine mass shooting just days before he was hospitalized for having thoughts of harming fellow soldiers, according to a report. He got his gun legally. He didn't go buy it out of the back of a trunk of a car. He didn't rob anybody to get it. He bought it legally. And I have some other questions. From what I have read, this man was being treated for mental illness. He was hospitalized for 2 weeks this summer. What happened? Oh, we're gonna get, yeah, buddy. We're coming to that. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've got the smartest audience on the internet. And this kind of comment right here is proof of why. This man was being treated for mental illness. He was in a hospital for 2 weeks this summer. Was he prescribed medication? Was he taking his medication? Yeah, and you know what? You may be absolutely right. Oh, I did not know that. Really? Did not know that. Well, this sort of thing, you hear a lot of whispers. You do. Yeah. Was he being treated? Was he being prescribed anything? Was he even taking his medication? And, I'm going to put up an article here in a minute that I think it seems to be an absolutely appropriate question. And I think it ought to be debated because I'm not going to lie about it. It gives me something to think about. This is by Mark Siegel, and you'll sometimes see him on Fox News. Hang on a second. That happened at the Sandy Hook shooting. They are using the same script and storyline almost. Can't. Okay. I'm not going to agree. I'm not going to disagree because I haven't looked at the parallels that closely. But Hunter, you may be absolutely right. You may be absolutely right on this. But I want to put this up here, and I want to read part of this article. It's by Mark Siegel. Like I said, you'll sometimes see him on Fox News. He's a physician. Headline: Massacre shows how Maine and the nation failed to deal with violent mentally ill. Robert Card, suspect in Lewiston, Maine shootings, is a 40-year-old Army reservist, a trained firearms instructor, and had recently reported mental health issues, including hearing voices. Card was reported to have been committed to a mental health facility in Maine 2 weeks this summer. This information brings up some very disturbing questions that go beyond the crime. First, why is a citizen of Maine with a mental health history able to possess a firearm? Okay. For one thing, Maine lacks a red flag law that allows people, including families, to request that firearms be taken away from a person who has been deemed a threat to themselves or others, as appears to have been the case here. As of 2023, 21 states, including D.C., have red flag laws. Maine has a yellow flag law, which has only been used 24 times between 2020 and 2022, and does not allow family members to petition a judge to order someone to give up their guns. Only the police can issue such a request. Furthermore, I believe it is unlikely that Robert Carr was taking antipsychotic medications if prescribed, even after he threatened to shoot up the National Guard base. This is what psychiatry calls homicidal ideation with a concrete plan. It is justification for involuntary commitment to a psychiatric facility and immediately raises the question of why Card was reportedly released after only a 2-week stay. Now that I'd really like to know. Maine is in trouble when it comes to mental health services, and it is not alone. Mental health hospitals are being closed all across the country. At the end of 2021, there were only 87 mental health crisis workers for the entire state. Whoa. Compared to 2,500 law enforcement officers. More than 2,000 patients were waiting for outpatient mental health treatment, and 32 out of 45 emergency department beds were filled with individuals waiting discharge for residential mental health care. Meanwhile, more than 20 mental health residential programs in Maine had closed that year due to a lack of staffing and inadequate financing. Spring Harbor Hospital is the only not-for-profit private psychiatric hospital of inpatient services in southern Maine. Maine has 2 state-run mental hospitals. The Lewiston shootings are tragic, but not isolated. The country needs more emphasis, not just on the kind of weapon used, but on the person using it and why. Mark Siegel is a clinical professor of medicine and medical director of Dr. Radio at New York University Langone Health and is a Fox News medical analyst. Okay, let's talk about this. I am not ready to support the kind of red flag law he's talking about on its face. Here's my problem. Define mental health and define how you know someone has a problem with it. I mean, what are we going to do? Somebody doesn't like somebody else in the family. That person happens to own guns, and the person that doesn't like the other person goes to court. Hey, he's a danger to himself. Take away his guns. Now, that said, common sense tells me, okay, if a person is having legitimate mental health issues and you can tell it, okay, you want to try to keep this person away from firearms or other things that could be potentially destructive to them and or other people. I get that. But I'm not so sure I'm ready to go so far as to say, let's put a law in place that says if somebody goes running into a courtroom saying, this guy's not mentally all there, take away his guns. I'm not ready to do that, not by a long shot. But I do think Mark Siegel brings up some very valid points. You know, conservatives like me get very cranky about, the things we spend money on. And sometimes we don't realize that an ounce of prevention is still worth a pound of cure. I mean, a lot of people have been busted on Reagan over the years for a lot of different stuff. And one of them was he closed down mental asylums in the early 1980s. Now, how much of that's true, how much of it's not, who could say at this point because so many years have gone by. But when you see what's walking around in San Francisco and LA and any other major city, or even your hometown, and you wonder, should this person really be walking the streets, or maybe we ought to, get them a reservation for a rubber room? Well, having mental health facilities that can actually, and I shouldn't be as smart ass about it as I am, but you get my point. Maybe it's about time that until we can get a handle on what's causing a lot of this mental illness, maybe it's time we start bringing this stuff back. Mental health facilities, asylums, etc. Because we got some people walking around right now with the potential to do a lot of harm to a lot of people if the wrong set of circumstances happen, which is what happened here. This man purchased a gun. He did so legally. And in the mental state he was in, started shooting up people. Well, yeah. Yeah. We don't know what he was on, or even if he was taking it. That's an even bigger question. And I think Mark Siegel's right about this. Why was this man discharged after 2 weeks? Everybody's going to start guns. No, whoa. Wait a minute. Why was this man discharged after 2 weeks? Either he voluntarily put himself in this mental facility or somebody put him there. But either way, why is this man discharged after just 2 weeks? He's telling people after he left, or maybe before, he's hearing voices. What the heck is going on here? And unfortunately, Hunter, I think you're absolutely right. Watch him, because Janet Mills is, on a lot of issues, is no friend of freedom. You watch and see if they don't try and do this. Yeah. And and to that point, London's got extraordinarily strict gun laws. People just use knives or cars even. And I guess what I'm going to say is personally for myself. maybe it's time that I start taking a really deep dive into the mental health issues behind a lot of these events. And I'm not saying to sound pious. I'm really not. It's just, a person only has just so much bandwidth. And how do you get into some of this stuff? Because more and more, that's the common thread. You've got people with mental health problems for one reason or another. They pick up a gun, they start doing violence. Well, what if we could actually do something about the mental health issues? And I'll go so far as to say this. I've said this for years. We are over medicating this country. We have got people on so many different kinds of medications and pills for various things that when you start mixing them together, you have no idea what kind of psychological effect it's causing. And that's something that definitely ought to be addressed for any number of reasons, and not just as it relates to gun violence either. But you hear about the stuff that happened up in Maine, and you're like, wow. And you guys are smart enough to know it. Gun control, we got to take away the guns. No, why don't you go down to the underlying issue? It's not the weapon, it's the person. On that point, I think Speaker Mike Johnson of the House is absolutely right. Oh boy. Well, I'll take recommendations on where to start that search. I really will. So if anybody's got, good resources for me to take a look at that, let me know, because I'll definitely dive into it, because I think something's got to give here. I mean, something has absolutely got to give, and not just for the political part of it either, for the betterment of society. This has got to change. I mean, how many more times are people like us going to gather on the electronic front porch, wherever that may be in the internet world, and we're going to read a story like this, and it's just going to out in one ear, out the other, because we hear it so often we're numb to it anymore. And it just breaks the heart. I mean, the shooting down in Tennessee at the Christian school, this mass shooting here, shootings in Texas at a mall. It's just on and on and on with this stuff. From a human standpoint, it just breaks the heart. These are someone's kids, or their parents, or their grandparents, or an aunt, or an uncle, or a brother, or a sister. And now they're dead. It just really breaks the heart. It really does. Sorry, I'm getting a little personal with this. Yeah, it is. It's horrifying. It's horrifying, and it's absolutely sad. It's the kind of stuff that just. Oh, thanks, Hunter. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Very kind. But yeah, it's horrifying, and it's sad, and it's just, we're getting too used to this. We really are. We're getting way too used to this. Now, I don't know about anybody else, and I know everybody that's watching this live stream feels like I do. It's just I've got the microphone to be able to say it. There's got to be some kind of way. We're never going to cure it totally. Things like this are going to happen, but they shouldn't be happening with this much frequency. And there's got to be some kind of common denominator. If there is, can we figure out what it is and then figure out how to solve it, as opposed to blaming the object that causes the shooting and then start taking away people's freedoms? Anyway, just me ranting a little bit. But what time is it? Oh my gosh, it's 12 o'clock. Woo. I told you we're probably going to blow past 12:30. So if y'all have things you got to do, I get it. And I apologize for being as long-winded as I am. But I found a whole bunch of stuff this week, and I just want to bring it to y'all's attention. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world, as always. And, definitely is worth talking about. My name is, if you just happen to be stopping by, My name is Brian Tripp, and I'm the Front Porch Conservative, and this is Front Porch Brunch. We get together Saturday mornings at 10:30 a.m. Every Saturday, and we've been doing this now. I can't believe this is like my 29th episode of this. I've been doing this now for like, what's that, 7 months? Wow. It's really hard to believe, man. It really is. But we're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on Twitter, and for everybody who's here, Hunter, Small Time Republic, Daniel, up in Connecticut, Gypsy, got Dr. OK over there on Rumble, and a few other people who've stopped by. We appreciate y'all being here. We really do. Let's shift gears and give you a quick update about some of what's going on in Israel. There's been things happening, and just want to point some of this out. So I'll start with a headline from a website called ground.news. I got to give Robert Barnes credit for this one because I'd never come across these guys before. So Israeli military says expanding Gaza ground operations, they cut off the internet. As you know, Gaza has been under siege. No water, no electricity, now no internet. And apparently their efforts are starting to produce some results. Oops, hang on. Oh, there we go. Oh, hello. Everybody still here? Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Israeli Defense Force assassinates a Hamas commander, hits over 250 targets in Gaza. So they seem to be moving in the right direction, at least as far as eradicating Hamas. And interesting article here by a gentleman named Bob. This is from the Jerusalem Post, how the IDF is turning guerrilla warfare against Hamas in Gaza. Guerrilla warfare is almost as old as war, but traditionally it's used by the lighter or weaker side to hold off a larger, less agile side. The IDF invasion of Gaza has begun, yet you do not hear about it or heard about it and couldn't tell. In the last couple of days, the Israeli Defense Force initiated 3 targeted and short incursions into Gaza before withdrawing each time. 2 of the incursions were by land, and a third was by sea by Shayetet 13 Naval Commandos. You did not hear about it or it did not register as significant because, tactically speaking, all each incursion did was destroy a limited number of Hamas infrastructure targets and engage in a small number of peripheral Gaza fighters. Prior airstrikes for 3 weeks have done far more damage, so the impact was pretty limited. The media also has not been impressed by these small incursions because the expectations have been set for a massive ground assault, the largest ever into Gaza, drawing on 360,000 IDF reservists who were called up. What has happened has been the minuscule compared to that, and still not even reached the 2014 Gaza war invasion level, which itself was limited. So apparently the Israelis have been moving in and out of Gaza, small incursions, small amount of manpower, but very targeted, very effective taking down of Hamas's operation. So we'll see where this goes. I will show you one last thing. And this was from Benny Johnson's Twitter account. Folks, take a look at this. This is from Grand Central Station in New York City. Yeah, that's what's passing for protests these days on behalf of Hamas and the Palestinians. You know, I will say one thing. There's one thing that's happened in America if people who weren't aware of how infectious the college campuses have become as far as infiltrating the minds of young people, and not just young people, but people in general, and filling them full of information that is not true, here's a perfect example of what you get. I don't know. Just people have the right to protest. That's fine. But, yeah. Yeah. Just think about what you just saw. Funny how, yeah, they're all wearing the same t-shirt. And about 100 of them were arrested. 10,000 people show up at Grand Central Station protesting on behalf of the Palestinians and Hamas. And about 100 of them get arrested. But boy, are they color coordinated together. Gotta love it. Gots to love it. Absolutely amazing. Just mind-boggling. Well, that Israel segment was a little shorter than I expected. So we're now to the point of the show that I call HodgePodge Stew. And I have been a little remiss with HodgePodge Stew the past few weeks because there's so much in the world that goes on right now. But there are some things that have happened that I think are just downright funny. Yeah. What's going on with Owen right now? Is he serving a 1 month sentence? I've heard that that's said. Is he serving the 1 month sentence? I hadn't really kept up with that one, so I need to kind of find out. There are some interesting things happening that are kind of yeah. Okay, one last thing on that Grand Central protest. Yeah, I'll bet they were. I'll bet. There are some funny things happening in the world just under the scenes, and one of them absolutely cracks me up given who is involved. Would you believe that the raging Cajun James Carville has managed to piss somebody off? Shocking. I know. The idea that he can make someone mad is just, I can't believe anybody. Oh, okay. So that's what's going on with Owen. Oh, I thought it was 30. Okay, I apologize. Small time. I thought it was 30. Wow. Not just for saying 1776. Jeez. Saw a picture. Wow. Wow. Damn. Well, that just took the shine off this story I was about to do. That's another story I got to look into. But he's in solitary for 60 days. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Damn. Just wow. My goodness. Anyway, James Carville has managed to make people mad. Oh, gee, there's a shock. But it's who he's made mad is what's shocking. And it's their reaction to what he's saying, which to me strikes me even funnier. Take a look at this. Yeah, let's do that. James Carville says top Democrats are telling him to shut up about Biden's 2024 weaknesses. Representative Dean Phillips, Democrat Minnesota, announced a primary challenge against Biden on Friday. Now, if it were anybody else, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised by this. Because one thing that the Democrats are famous for is very effective messaging. But the fact they're telling James Carville to keep his mouth shut, do these people not know who they're talking to? I mean, really? Carville? You're going to try and get Carville to shut up? Are you crazy? This man has made a living off running his mouth. You know, say what you want to about the guy, but he's a very effective individual. You know, I mean, and the fact that the Democrats are telling him, and this is the guy who got Bill Clinton elected in 92, has got various other people elected over the years, and he's very smart. He's extremely smart. I mean, for all of his bluster and all of his everything else, James Carville's probably one of the sharpest people out there. And he knows what these numbers in the polls mean for Biden. They ain't good. That's not to say Biden still couldn't win re-election. He still could. But the fact that the Democrats are so either in lockstep with their messaging or so willingly blind to what's going on is just amazing to me. You know, Carville's reached the point in his life and his career that he's kind of like, I guess the best way I can describe it, he's kind of like what Roger Stone is to the Republican Party right now. Roger's sort of at that stage where, you know, I'm going to give advice. I'm going to tell you what I think. You can do with it what you want, but you ought to listen to me because I've been around long enough. Well, Carville's the same way on the Democratic side. This guy's been around a long time, okay? And people ought to listen to him. And the Democrats are so whatever, they just want to shut up. They don't want to hear that Biden could lose, which to me is crazy. Everybody's acknowledging the fact he could lose. And the fact that Carville's trying to say this to people in his own party is just remarkable to me. They don't want to listen to him. You know, this is one of those moments, you know, ignore me if you wish, but you'll do so to your peril. And that's exactly what's getting ready to happen here, potentially. And I love this comment. Carville cried coming out of the wood. Yeah, small time. You're absolutely right. I mean, he is. He's a brilliant strategist. You may not like what he does, and you may not like how he does it, but that guy is one smart cookie. He really is. Now, I want to shift gears off of that and get to something else. And I'm really glad, and this is my next thing under HodgePodge Stew. I am really glad that I kept my mouth shut about a certain subject that hit late Thursday. Okay. And I posted about it on Twitter. It was a tweet. Let me see if I can find the guy's name. Yeah. Ryan Fournier. He's the acting national chairman for a group known as Students for Trump. And he put out a tweet that was so explosive that everybody in the press ran with it. Just everybody. And when I read what it was, I went, ooh, this doesn't sound right. And I said at the time, I said, I'm not saying it's true, and I'm not saying it's not, but I'm going to hold my powder on this one and let this thing shake out. Well, thank God I did. I'm going to take you to an article from the Gateway Pundit. Here we go. Nasty false accusations against Mark Meadows retracted by sources after Gateway Pundit report. This is an article by Jim Hoft. We read the following. Several sources have retracted their statements regarding Mark Meadows, former chief of staff to President Trump, being an FBI informant and wearing a wire to record conversations with the former president. The discredited claims were said to be worse than Watergate and aimed to sow discord within the conservative community, tainting the reputation of a man who has long served as an upstanding member of the Republican Party. The accusations. Allegedly, Mark Meadows worked for the FBI as an informant and wore a wire to record all conversations with President Trump while he was chief of staff to him. This is not only unconstitutional, it's criminal. This is the government we live with. It is up to us to change that. I've received now what I'm reading right now, you're seeing it in italics. This was Ryan Fournier's tweet. This is exactly what he said in that tweet. I received confirmation from multiple members of Congress and confidential informants that this is true. Not only have I received calls from current members of Congress, I received calls from the media who know that I know about this information. I received calls from former members of Congress who have also explained the same thing to me. This is worse than Watergate. This is going to be the destruction of the FBI. On Thursday, the Gateway pundit spoke to Mark Meadows and his spokesperson regarding these accusations. Ben Williamson, Mark's longtime spokesman who served with Meadows in the White House, sent us this response, quote, "This is completely false and straight out of the Twilight Zone." Ryan Fournier, a Trump ally, co-founder and acting national chairman of the American youth group Students for Trump, and a friend of the Gateway pundit, issued an apology for tweeting the allegations. He later clarified that he spoke again with his sources, who then retracted their statements, admitting the information was wrong and incorrect. Yesterday, I put up a tweet alleging Mark Meadows wore a wire in the White House during the last stretch. I spoke with some of my sources again, and now it seems that information was wrong and incorrect, said Fournier. In fact, two of them retracted their statements on the matter entirely. I apologize for putting something out that is not being 100% accurate. That's on me, and I'll do better next time. I also apologize to Congressman Meadows and his staff for having to field questions on the issue. There seems to be some dark forces behind the scenes trying to get Meadows, and to me, that is very problematic, especially when it seems like being sent through the grapevine by some of our own. Excuse me one second. When asked by a follower on Twitter who it told him initially, Fournier identified a former member of Congress and said that two current members of Congress had reiterated the claims. Fournier concluded, I believe it to be falsely and entirely fabricated by someone else. One follower also asked Fournier, if people retract their statements, does that mean it's not true? No, not necessarily, but you could read between the lines when the stories start to change. Fournier also added that he felt dark forces were attempting to target Meadows and that this smear campaign seemed orchestrated by individuals within the conservative camp. I reached back out. One of them reached out to me. The right people know who is involved with the lies. I just happened to be the first one into the thinking that was true. Some Republicans, in quotes, are scum, and it's very clear they're trying to do what they're trying to do to Meadows. Fournier then took the bold step of naming Mark Walker as the original source of the claim, saying, former Representative Mark Walker is the original source for these claims. He also added, Fournier speaking, I will say this, I have no clue if he's the original source in terms of the knowledge on his face or if he heard it from someone else. Walker's a good man, don't get me wrong on that. I think a lot of people got lied to about this. Unfortunately, my tweet was the one viewed by millions and turned out not to be true. Again, I am sorry. Mark Walker immediately denied that he was involved with these claims. In a statement, he said, I have no view into the White House's 2020 election response and no inside knowledge around the DOJ's investigations of the Georgia plea deals. Okay. Like I said, there are moments when I'm really glad. I try as much as possible to go with the Bongino rule, which, if you're not familiar with it, says wait 48 to 72 hours for everything to come out. Now, and Gypsy, I agree with you on this. There is something weird to all of this. And maybe Fournier is right. Maybe there's some people inside conservative Republican circles that are trying to put a knife into Meadows for whatever reason. I have no idea. But, this one is weird. Just weird. And, maybe he is in over his head. I don't know. I don't know that much about the guy beyond what I see on Twitter. But I agree with Gypsy. This is just weird the way this went down. Really weird. So, yeah, that was just, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, here's one last thing I'll show you on this. And this came out Thursday. This is from Catherine Herridge. Oh, no, that's about the immunity deal. Never mind. Sorry about that. Wrong tweet. Or truth, I should say. Let's see. What else have we got in the HodgePodge? Oh, by the way, this one's kind of funny. I think you guys get a kick out of this. In our society, there are many different, how shall we say this? Individuals or groups that can appropriately skewer modern culture and do it so effectively that they become the stuff of legend. Well, my next thing that I'm going to post is from South Park. And you want something that'll absolutely make you laugh your butt off, you got to see this. This was a post that was put out by Colin Rugg, who's a social media influencer. He's the co-owner of Trending Politics. And this is funny. South Park episode blasts Disney and says all their movies, quote, suck now, and specifically blames Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy. Remarkable. The episode's called Joining the Panderverse, drops today, and all of the main characters have been replaced by minority women, an obvious mockery of the whole woke film industry. Cartman specifically blames Kathleen Kennedy for why Disney movies all suck now. Kennedy was responsible for overseeing the Star Wars film. I'm going to play this. This runs about almost 2 minutes. And I don't know about you, but after some of the stuff we've been looking at, this is a good palate cleanser. So, folks, hang on. I'll get this thing cranked up here in 1 second. This is just too good.
Why are they replacing every single character with someone who is diverse? But then Kennedy's like, it's not our fault, it's because of Kathleen Kennedy. But then Kathleen Kennedy's just like, fuck it, make it more lame. And everyone in town is like, no, please, Kathleen Kennedy, stop ruining everything. But Kathleen Kennedy is all like, put another gay diverse woman in it, make it more fucking lame. And the Disney stock just keeps going down and down and down. And then Bob Iger is all like, no, what's going on with my stocks? No, Kathleen Kennedy. I saw the Panderstone for the first time a few years ago. Bob Iger took us to the Disney archives and showed us an ancient piece of artificial intelligence that could be used to make the same movies over and over again while appealing to absolutely everyone. The Panderstone worked great for a while, but then came the hate mail. Ugly letters from racists who couldn't stand that some of the Panderstone's rehashes had diverse women characters in the lead. I decided I would show them. I would start making movies to fight all the bigotry in our society. But instead of doing any real work, I turned to the Panderstone. It made things so much easier. Soon I was using the Panderstone over and over again to try and fight all the ugly feedback, which in turn was growing stronger and stronger. But I was fighting with the wrong tool. I used the Panderstone to the point that it became unstable. It opened a portal to multiple universes and something came through.
At first we fought. I tried to send it back to its universe, but it got the upper hand. It was able instead to send me to this universe, out of its way so it could thrive in ours.
That's actually the best explanation I've heard as to why Disney movies all suck now.
Oh God. Oh God. Oh, that's good. That is so good. Yep, I'd say you're probably right. I'd say you're probably right. Oh my God. That's just awful. It's awful, but it's true. It's so funny. I gotta give it to South Park. They nailed, yeah, absolutely right. You're absolutely right. They just flat nailed it. That's great. Oh my gosh. I'm not even the biggest South Park fan, but that's just funny as all get out. And I will guarantee you, Bob Iger, Kathleen Kennedy, wherever she happens to be in the world, they've got to be just seething in anger. I don't know. Might be, might very well be. So, yeah, it's just funny as all get out. That's hysterical. Just hysterical. I'm sorry. I just can't help but laugh. That's great. As somebody who loves the Indiana Jones trilogy, the franchise, and uh and everything else, and to watch what Kathleen Kennedy has done to so many great Lucasfilm properties, Star Wars, etc. But yeah, okay. But they're rarely off the mark with these things. I sometimes have to watch and boy, they did a banger with this one. Let me tell you. But man, they nailed it. Yeah, and sadly, it's reached that point. It would take, and everybody's like, this guy's got to go. No, you don't understand. They have seeped, these people, these ideologies have seeped so deeply into places like Disney. I don't know, you can't turn them around. You'd have to gut. I mean, Culture Casino and I were talking about this a little while back, and I gave him my assessment. From a personnel standpoint, you would have to gut Disney right down to the studs and rebuild it back up with people who are not infected by woke ideology, intersectional feminism, SJW, whatever. And I don't know right now that Disney can do that, at least not with the current leadership, not while Iger's there. But yeah, this South Park thing just absolutely nailed it. Nailed it. Oh, gosh. So see, you come to the electronic front porch, and in spite of everything going on in the world that makes you mad or sad or makes you crazy, you get moments just like this. You never know what you're going to get when you come to the electronic front porch. Oh, God. Well, looks like we are going to indeed finish on time. Oh, that was great. Yeah, daggone it. Daggone it. Hey, I tell you what, I need y'all to do me a favor. And I'm serious about this. If you happen to come across something that you would like to see put into the HodgePodge Stew section of Front Porch Brunch, tweet it at me. I will do my best to work it in. Good morning, Cajun Corey. How are you, sir? Glad you're here. Glad to see you, sir. If you see something in that you think would be fun for HodgePodge Stew, do me a favor and tweet it at me. Just retweet it and tag me in it. Now, I will tell you up front, I don't know that I can put everything in, but if you find something you're like, you know what, this is kind of funny, we really ought to put this at the tail end of the show, tweet it at me. I mean, I always try to grab something, but time and bandwidth is limited here. Plus, I'm old, so yeah, just tweet it to me because I definitely should have put that one in, and I did not even think to do it. So yeah, just shoot it to me. I will try to get them all in, not necessarily guaranteeing that I can. But yeah, shoot it to me and it's up for consideration. Now, we have reached the end of Front Porch Brunch, but I must make a major announcement. And up in Connecticut knows what this is, and I am not going to lie, I'm very excited for this one. This week, Wednesday, November 1st, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, I have a very special guest, which all my guests are special, don't get me wrong. But I never thought I would ever get the chance to do an interview with the individual who is going to be on Chatting on the Porch this Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern. And if you're on Twitter on a regular basis, this has the potential to be a really fun interview with probably one of the sharpest individuals that I could ever have a conversation with. Doesn't mean we agree on everything, but I think this person's perspective and this person's vision definitely ought to be listened to. So with that, if I may have a drum roll, please. Yeah, this is a poor operation. That's all you're getting. Dr. Larry Schweikert. If you have never heard of this fellow, what are you doing? Second of all, he is a PhD in American history, recently retired a few years back from the University of Dayton. And if you're on social media and you follow this guy, you'll understand why I'm excited to have a conversation with him. He is a really good guy. There's a lot I want to get into with him: history, politics, the election. There's a bunch of stuff. So please spread the word. I'll be spreading the word around as much as I can over the next 4 days. But if you would spread the word around, we're going to have Dr. Larry Schweikert on the electronic front porch this Thursday, November 1st, 7:30 Eastern. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on Twitter. It will be on Rumble. Like I say, I'm really excited about this one, as I am with all my guests. But this is one of the bigger names, I think, outside of Rich Barris. And yeah, this is going to be it will be on Wednesday, November 1st. It will be on Wednesday, November the 1st, 7:30 Eastern. And yeah, please plan on being there. Bring a bunch of your friends. Let's have a whole bunch of fun with this. So really looking forward to it. So as always, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here this morning. You've been fantastic as always. And enjoy your weekend. Tell the members of your family that you love them. Go watch some football if you like that sort of thing. Watch the World Series. It's going to be a pretty good one. So anyway, that said, thank you guys for being the coolest audience on the internet. Thank you guys for all your comments. Thank you for stopping by today. As always, you have been fantastic. We'll see you next Wednesday. We'll see you next Wednesday for Chatting on the Porch with Dr. Larry Schweikert. And in the meanwhile, remember the words of that great American philosopher, Tom T. Hall. It's faster horses, younger lovers, older whiskey, and more money. We'll see you.